Hope you read the title. One day I was feeling totally crappy. I went to my doctors. They couldn't fit me in and said I should go to the clinic. I go to the clinic and upon walking in, a nurse sees me, grabs me, buzzes me in the back room, lays me on a gurney, calls the doctors over, and they then call 911 emergency ambulance and they tell me I could be having a heart attack and I got to get to the ER ASAP. My story about what happened next, stand by. Let's do this. This was not a heart attack. It was a copycat condition called pericarditis. Same look, act, and feel. Let's look at pericarditis.
So let's get into pericarditis, a heart issue that mimics a heart attack so well, medical staff cannot tell the difference until they get into and all through tons of testing for an actual heart attack. And when they rule that out, they got to do that first, then they can look into why you seemingly are having a heart attack, but you're not going into full cardiac arrest and not dying yet. This chart is what most of us saw in high school or any health class. It gives us the basic layout of the heart for the purpose of answering test questions. But there's much more to the heart, inclusive that the heart sits in a type of sac made out of a skin-type layer called the pericardium. When things are functioning normal, there's a gap between the pericardium layer and the heart. But if that layer gets infected or troublesome, it can become inflamed or even filled with fluid. Again, a quick look at a chart to teach the various parts of the heart. When the heart beats, it expands and contracts with each pump. If the pericardium layer is inflamed, the heart bumps into that skin with each and every pump. The end result is that the heart gets bruised and even damaged because it is not supposed to rub up against anything while it is pumping. So you have seen these movies where hospitals let you hear the heart thumping, thump, 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 thump. But a cardiologist, they listen for additional sounds with that thump, 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 and it's called a cardiac rub. And what they're listening for is something like this. They hear thump, 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 thump. And what they're hearing is the heart is actually rubbing up against that outer layer of skin called the pericardium, and it's bruising the heart every time they hear that sound. So they listen for that very carefully. Before I get into the actual symptoms of pericarditis, I want to talk about the types of pericarditis. And there are 4 basic types. One is called chronic, another recurrent, then incessant, and finally there's acute. Now here's the descriptions of those 4 so you can tell the difference. So on just chronic pericarditis, there's symptoms, and we'll get into what they are in a minute, that last like up to 3 months, like even over 3 months. The recurrent, these are symptoms, but they come back after someone got documented that they actually have pericarditis, and then they're symptom free for like a month or 2 months, and then it comes back again. That's obviously recurrent. The other one, incessant, is there's symptoms that last 4 to 6 weeks, but they're less than 3 months, and it's without remission. I mean, they just have the symptoms for a long time. And acute, there's a lot going on with the acute pericarditis. There's pericarditic chest pain, and we're going to talk about that because there's a difference between chest pain with the like a heart attack and a chest pain with pericarditis. Other one is called pericardital rubs, and we kind of touched upon that, where there's a rubbing sound. And these other items, the ST elevations and the PR depression, these are things that you see on an EKG strip. It's got those wiggly lines all up and down EKG strip. People read those, and there's peaks and there's valleys, but they call them ST elevations and PR depressions. And finally, there's pericardial effusion, and that's a neat word for there's fluid in that space that we were talking about earlier, of where the pericardium skin is. There's fluid in there and stuck in there. When you're talking about the acute status, which is the highest status of pericarditis, there's a couple other things they look for. And one is they have these called elevation markers of inflammation. You can recite that word they have there, but basically your white blood cell count is out of whack. The other one is they can actually take images, and there's CT scans, there's something called a CMR scan, and then there's a gamma camera imaging. That's interesting because they use that on what's known as nuclear stress tests. They'll build you up on a treadmill and they'll put a nuclear fluid in your bloodstream and then hurry you over to a gamma camera that will catch that fluid, and they can see what's going on in the heart and where the blood's going or not going. So I want to talk about the symptoms of pericarditis versus heart attack symptoms. And you'll see why even medical staff has a difficulty time telling what's going on with a person who has one or the other. Let's talk about chest pain. Chest pain is pretty known to be a symptom of a heart attack, but so it is also in pericarditis. And the onset of the symptoms, look, they're sudden. They come out of nowhere. All of a sudden you have these symptoms. And what are the symptoms? The description are, on pericarditis, it's like stabbing, or it's a sharp pain coming from a specific place in the heart or the chest. On a heart attack, it's more like pressure, or there's a heavy weight bearing down on their chest or squeezing their chest together. And are there any changes with breathing? Well, a pericarditis person will say every time they take a breath in, it hurts and it's painful to take a breath. A heart attack victim won't have that. On changes with position, a pericarditis person, it gets worse when they lay down, and that's one of the first things medical staff do to work on somebody. They put you in a bed and they lay you down. Well, it starts to hurt worse at that point. And a heart attack, they don't have that. And the radiates elsewhere, the different pains, well, they're almost exactly the same. They are. The pain could be in the left or both arms. It could be in the shoulder, the neck, or the jaw. It's for both pericarditis and a heart attack. The duration on a heart attack, minutes to hours. On pericarditis, you can have this hours, days, and even weeks, and as we saw some others, even months. There's some final items about these pericarditis and heart attack symptoms similarities. On the physical exam of someone who's having a heart attack and a physical exam of someone that's experiencing pericarditis, the pericarditis, about 85% of patients will hear that rub. At least a cardiologist will hear that sound when they listen for the thump, thump, thump in the heart. They'll hear that rub happen. And a heart attack, that's not there. Then there's cardiac congestion or pulmonary congestion. In pericarditis, that's not there. In a heart attack, they may see that. May not, but it's very possible that could be there. It's just not there for a pericarditis person. Now, when you have a heart attack, you hear about people taking nitroglycerin. That will not help a person who has pericarditis. I mean, it'll still continue to hurt. They'll still be in pain. But a heart attack victim, those symptoms will subside. Earlier, I spoke of an EKG reading, and I was talking about peaks and valleys and these things they call them elevations and depressions. This is an actual EKG from someone experiencing pericarditis, not a heart attack. Now, if you hear a thump, 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 thump of someone with a healthy heart, all these should be fairly equal peaks and valleys. If you look at the EKG, you don't have to be a specialist to know these ups and downs and peaks and valleys of the readings are all over the board. Some go real deep, some go real high. They're not equal. And this is what a pericarditis EKG looks like. Listen, in any instance where somebody's like holding their chest like that and they don't know why, they're just feeling terrible, and they lay down and they're holding their neck, and they just are not feeling right, and they keep holding their chest area and things are hurting, it's good just to call 911, get them to a hospital, because we're not medical professionals that can do the test to figure out whether it is a heart attack. And if you get someone there and they're having a heart attack, you could rightly save them. But the symptoms are so the same, it's just better to consider everything safe for the person, to get them to a medical professional as soon as possible when they have these symptoms. You could save a life, but a pericarditis person who's already had it one time needs to tell the staff right away, I have pericarditis, that's what this could be. And they know it up front. That's important.
Thank you for letting me share my story with you about pericarditis and the similarities to a heart attack. I thank you for watching. Come on back. Hit that like. Hit the subscribe. You'll be notified when I have the next video that comes out. You can click on either one of these things. They should be right here. I put them in post-edit. So I'll see you later. Have fun. Love seeing you. Come on back.